Sunrise on the water. As daylight slowly unfolds, the chorus of frogs and insects fades. In its place come sounds of the morning, as yellow-headed blackbirds, great blue herons, and a family of wood ducks punch in for the day shift on this shallow Iowa lake. Drop for drop, gallon for gallon, acre for acre. These shallow, water-filled basins hold more plant and animal life, more activity than just about any other natural habitat the landscape has to offer.
In an ideal shallow water lake, the spring and fall migrations of migratory birds, including waterfowl, are spectacular. We boast some of the highest densities of birds during the migrations of anywhere on their migration route. During the breeding seasons, all sorts of secretive marsh birds and waterfowl broods will be on that marsh. The marsh is a living system, and it has a high amount of wildlife use during all seasons of the year.
Their special hydrology, their unique connection to wet and dry weather cycles, have made Iowa's shallow lakes prime habitat for ducks, geese, swans, and a host of other water birds, as well as for turtles and other reptiles, amphibians, fur bearers, and other aquatic life. These shallow lakes provide for human activity as well. Duck hunters still thrill to the age-old spectacle as a flock of migrating mallards cup their wings and settle into a decoy spread. Shallow lakes also provide viewing opportunities for birders and provide an exciting stage for environmental education, truly taking the classroom outdoors. But these special places are also exemplified by what they are not. They are not boating meccas, nor do they fill the needs of heavy-duty recreation centers met by larger natural lakes or artificial impoundments. Most shallow lakes in Iowa are actually very large marshes with mud bottoms and maximum water depths of just 3 to 6 feet. That's plenty of water to provide for the needs of wetland plant and animal communities. It's not enough, though, for pleasure boats to get skiers to their feet or for personal watercraft to zip across the summer waves. There's a look to a shallow lake.
A shallow lake should have a lot of vegetation growing above the surface of the water, particularly along the shoreline and in the shallower parts of the marsh. A shallow lake should have a substantial area of open water, but that open water should be very clear, and you should be able to see an abundance of plants growing beneath the surface of that water.
Shallow lakes are best suited to fulfill their natural roles, doing what they've always done, to provide homes for aquatic plants and wildlife, to collect and store runoff and nutrients, and to provide appropriate recreational opportunities for our citizens. It is this natural rhythm which makes wetlands so productive. Water supports plants, plants support insects, insects attract birds, and it's this abundance of life, of course, which in turn attracts people. Many Iowans depend on shallow lakes for their recreation, and it doesn't have to be boating or skiing or even hunting.
Well, when I go in, it's usually spring and fall. I go for a purpose, and that's to see birds. And generally, it's shorebirds and waders, and they come through, and if the water is there for them, they'll stay. They need edges, they need the mud flats, they need the plant growth, the cattails, they need cover, and all of this is important.
Historically, the health of Iowa's shallow lakes was maintained by natural wet-dry cycles. Following periods of ample rain and snow, drought would cause lake beds to dry and crack. Sediments would harden. But then, new or dormant plant life would emerge. That vegetation growth provided food and habitat for wildlife. As the rains returned and wetlands refilled, the lush plant base would hold sediments into place and take up nutrients. The ecosystem thrived under this wet, then dry, then wet again cycle. Unfortunately, natural systems are no longer adequate. As marshes and prairies were converted to row crops, shallow lakes took on ever-growing volumes of runoff. Often, urban development adds to the runoff, effectively preventing low water cycles, even during drought. The situation is aggravated further as rough fish, like carp, uproot vegetation and stir up bottom sediments, promoting algae growth. The result? Greatly impaired water quality. An ecosystem that once flourished is now reduced to little more than a giant mud hole, providing little value to desirable fish, wildlife, or humans. Not a promising picture. But all is not lost. With proper management, Iowa's shallow lakes can be restored to full health. We can renovate a shallow lake, creating its natural drought cycle through a managed drawdown of water. During a drawdown, the lake is drained, usually in the fall. Removing enough water will eliminate populations of carp and other rough fish over the winter. As warm weather returns, plant life regenerates. As aquatic plant beds become established, water is allowed to slowly refill the lake bed. If biologists determine the basin can support a successful fishery, the DNR will stock the lake with desirable species.
So after we finish the restoration of these lakes, and we see improved water quality, and we see vegetation in the water, and we see the response by the fisheries and the wildlife, it's not a one-time fix. We can't assume that these systems are going to continue to function in the long term without continued management.
Public support is critical. The people living around the lake, the people using the lake, need to weigh in.
It was amazingly positive all the way around. Of course, you always have a few people that are concerned and don't quite understand, or maybe have an entirely different perspective. But we had support from local sportsmen and people that lived around the lake, and the farmers in the area, the County Conservation Board. So, it was all very positive, and they were all ready to see something done to Big Wall Lake.
With rough fish removed, with plant communities revitalized, and with clear water restored, Big Wall Lake is again a wetland paradise.
We'll have other plants like soft stem bulrush and cattails that will come in, and right now they're pretty scattered, but then they're just young plants. They've had basically one or maybe two growing seasons. So as they mature, they'll spread out, take up more space.
Through partnership with fisheries and local fishermen and our wildlife biologists and local hunters and local residents who enjoy just maybe the view or watching wildlife on that lake, we want to work with all of them so that all of our expectations for what that system can be and appreciation for the incredible diversity of species that it can have there, we want them all to be on board with us as we make these decisions and make them in partnership for the health of the system.